Just remember, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
And there you have it. Or as George Orwell wrote in the novel 1984, reject the evidence of your eyes and your ears. The president dominating the airwaves this morning, even when he didn't plan to be. His former fixer, Michael Cohen, has released a secretly recorded audio tape featuring Donald Trump discussing a payment involving a former Playboy model. A veterans group, meanwhile, is giving a public boost to the press after the president attacked reporters as fake news during an event yesterday. And speaking of campaign lines from 2 years ago, the United States Attorney General egged on high school students in a chant of "lock her up." All this plus congressional Republicans hammering the White House for trade policies and a government bailout now to farmers. One senator likens to the economic graft of the Soviet Union. One Republican senator, I might point out. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Joe. It's Wednesday, July 25th. I'm Willie Geist, alongside NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent, the host of KCDC on MSNBC.
Hey, we all get it.
You didn't get it on the wide shot.
Welcome, guys.
Has that gotten old for you yet? The lightning, you'll let us know, right?
Yeah, come on.
Boys are raw.
I'm waiting for the Barnacle hot take flames.
Well, that might be coming today.
We've got one today? All right. A little tease there from MSNBC contributor Mike Barnacle. Also with us, national affairs analyst for NBC News and MSNBC John Heilman, associate editor of Commentary Magazine Noah Rothman, White House reporter for the Associated Press Jonathan Lemire, political reporter for the Daily Beast Betsy Woodruff, and New York Times reporter Michael Schmidt. Joe and Mika have the morning off. We've got a full house and a lot of reporting for you this morning. Attorneys for President Trump and Michael Cohen have verified a 2016 audio tape recorded by Trump's former legal fixer. And while the camps are disputing who said what exactly, they agree on the subject of the conversation. Then candidate Trump is heard discussing a possible payment to purchase the story rights of a former Playboy model, Karen McDougal, about an affair she says she had with Trump a decade earlier, in which the president denies. All this in the fall of 2016. Cohen lawyer Lanny Davis released that tape to CNN, and while NBC cannot confirm whether it's been edited or altered, here's what CNN played in its entirety, and a warning: it does include a brief profanity from then candidate Donald Trump.
Let me know what's happening, okay? Maybe because of this, it would be better if you didn't go. You know, maybe because of this, for that one. You know, I think what they should do is get rid of this because it's so false what they're saying. It's such bullshit. I think this goes away quickly. I think it's probably better. Do the Charleston thing, just this time. Yeah, in 2 weeks it's fine. I think right now it's better. You know? Okay, honey. You take care of yourself. Thanks, Pam. Yeah, I'm proud of you. So long. Bye. What's up, Mike?
Great poll, by the way.
Yeah.
Seeing it. Great poll.
Making progress.
Big time.
And you guys are good guys.
Oh, Pastor Scott?
I can't believe it. No, Pastor Scott. What's happening?
Oh, no.
Can we use him anymore?
Oh, yeah. 100. No, you're talking about Mark Burns. We told him
Well,
to.
I don't mean that. Mark Burns. Can we use him?
No. No.
Richard Lefrak, I'm sorry, Richard Lefrak just called. He just had, we have a chance. He had an idea for you.
So we got served from the New York Times. I told you this regarding to unseal the divorce papers with Ivana. We're fighting it. Kaslowitz is going to
never be able to get that.
Never. Kaslowitz don't ever be able. They don't have a.
Give me your coat, please.
They don't have a legitimate purpose.
And you have a woman that doesn't want to unseal.
Correct.
So you've been handling it.
Yes, and it's all.
It's been going on for a while.
For about 2-3 weeks now.
All you have to do is delay it for.
Even after that, it's not going to ever be opened. There's no purpose for it. Told you about Charleston. I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David. You know, so that I'm going to do that right away. I've actually come up and I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up with
So what are we going to pay?
Funding. Yes. And it's all the stuff, because you never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be. Correct. So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be.
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So no. I got no.
All right, so we're going to work through exactly what you heard right there. But first, the exclusive rights to McDougal's story, we want to remind you, were purchased and never published for $150,000 by the National Enquirer's parent company, American Media, whose chairman, David Pecker, an ally of the president, may be the man Cohen is referring to when he mentions our friend David. Trump and McDougal met at the Playboy Mansion in June of 2006, 3 months after Melania Trump gave birth to Trump's youngest son. According to The New Yorker, she continued to see him in L.A. for several months after that, and he allegedly offered her money. Her 2016 contract with American Media promised her regular columns on aging and wellness and to prominently feature her on 2 of the company's magazine covers. When the Wall Street Journal reported the payment 4 days before the election, Trump campaign's spokeswoman, Hope Hicks, said, quote, "We have no knowledge of any of this." Let's bring in senior reporter at Vanity Fair and NBC News and MSNBC contributor Emily Jane Fox. Emily, good morning. You've been wired into Michael Cohen's world for a very long time. In fact, you were here yesterday talking about a different piece of this story. Just walk us through a little bit of what we heard last night and how the decision was made by Lanny Davis, the attorney for Michael Cohen, and by Michael Cohen to make it public.
Well, I think the most interesting thing about the tape is it is very clear that in the height of the election, President Trump was clearly plugged in to all that Michael Cohen was doing. So whether that was this payment made or the talk of the payment made to AMI or something about his divorce papers being unsealed or not being unsealed, what is clear is that the president knew about everything that was going on. And I think that was a very calculated strategy made by Michael Cohen and his attorneys yesterday. Since Friday, people in Cohen world had been telling me that the narrative that Rudy Giuliani had put out about this leaked recording on Friday was not accurate, that that was not the full story, and that there was much more to know when the transcript or the recording would actually come out. Now, I don't think that anyone believed it would come out so soon, but what we saw over the weekend was a lot of growing frustration from Cohen and the people around him. This narrative they believed was not accurate. People were really believing it. And Cohen believes that there is a calculated strategy in the works from people around the president to discredit him, to make him look like he had nothing to do with the president, that the decisions that he made were made on his own and the president had no idea. And so watching cable news all weekend, watching cable news yesterday, the frustration continued to mount. And the president had waived privilege for this recording. And so I think that there was sort of a, well, what are we waiting for? Why not get the narrative straight? Why not let the questions that we have listening to the recording be posed to the American public and let them decide what they think?
So, Michael Schmidt, as you listen to that 2 minutes and 51 seconds that we just played there, the dispute seems to be between Rudy Giuliani and Michael Cohen's camp, Lanny Davis, of this question of how the payment was being discussed. What does the term cash mean? Did the president suggest they should pay cash, or was he saying don't pay cash? But at the end of the day, you have 2 men talking 2 months before the presidential election about a payment. We should stipulate a payment that was never made, a payment to a former Playboy model to keep her quiet.
Yeah, the dispute is on this issue of the payment. And when we wrote on Friday about the existence of this recording, Rudy said, look, this shows that the president wanted it to be made in a check so it could be followed, so it could be above board, and he did not want it to be paid with cash. As you heard from the audio, it is not nearly that clear, but it is not nearly as clear as Cohen's lawyers make it out to be, where they say it's completely clear that the president wanted it to be paid in cash. We do not hear any of the audio right after the point that it's initially discussed. So both sides making contradictory claims about the tape not being the clearest. We only have a small snippet of what they were talking about. At the end of the day, that's only really an issue that's come up because of the claims Giuliani made on Friday as he tried to explain why the tape was not bad for the president. But ultimately, as you point out, look, this is something they were talking about. The president clearly knew about it.
Yeah, Michael Cohen's attorney, Lanny Davis, told NBC News last night, quote, Cohen is trying to reset his life as not being Donald Trump's bullet taker, or worse, a punching bag for Donald Trump's defense strategy where he takes the bullets. This is a turn for him. It's a new resolve to tell the truth no matter what, even if it endangers him. The White House declined comment and referred questions to Rudy Giuliani, who disputed the Cohen team's claim on Trump's use of the word cash.
Major point is it's outrageous that someone would tape his client surreptitiously. It's also foolhardy for them to try to kind of yell and scream and make believe what's on the tape. I agree with you, the tape is a little bit hard to hear, but I assure you that we listened to it numerous times. And the transcript makes it quite clear at the end that President Trump says, quote, don't pay with cash.
Jonathan Lemire, you also spoke to Rudy Giuliani last night. What did he tell you? And is it actually clear that the president is saying don't pay with cash?
What Giuliani told me late last night is that they have the recording and they have enhanced it. He said this is a tactic that he would do as a prosecutor. He said that when I would go after the mafia, we'd do the same thing. We'd have a muffled recording and we'd try to bring the better sound out of it. He says in that recording, it is clear that the president is saying don't pay with cash. Of course, and then they released a transcript that seems to back that up. They, of course, have not released that actual enhanced recording, so we have not heard that yet. We're just relying on the recording that Lanny Davis put out. But Giuliani's argument to me was that this is still backs up the president's argument, their camp's argument, that he didn't do anything wrong, that he was trying to do this above board. He makes the point that earlier in this conversation, you heard it in the tape there, that they discussed maybe setting up a corporation to pay it. And they're saying, well, that must, that, Giuliani's argument is, that is showing if Donald Trump, then candidate Trump, and Michael Cohen are trying to obscure this, they wouldn't have set up a corporation. They wouldn't be discussing it by check. They believe that this is that Cohen's camp is trying to, muddy the waters here and change the argument to try to attack the president, and they feel very comfortable that that's not the case. They also said that they have 12 other tapes that they're going through. They don't believe that Trump is on them, but rather it's Cohen talking about Trump with third parties. They have said that they will they're debating whether to release them.
John Heilman, in listening to that tape, I don't know what you glean from it other than the fact that there are a lot of names mentioned. One of the most important probably is our friend David. And the question of why does the tape end so abruptly? Clearly the tape must be in control of Michael Cohen, but I don't know what else you find out in that tape if you're a prosecutor.
Neither do I, and I think there's the largest questions revolve around context. Exactly what's happening before and after? Who's Donald Trump talking to when he seems to be having a telephone conversation with someone before the thing starts? Who's in and out of the room at various times? What's the reference to the Charlottesville issue that comes up twice, both in the telephone conversation and then also with Michael Cohen? There are a lot of questions about all of this, and I will say, though, that to me, from 30,000 feet, what is interesting about this most of all is that for a long time, among Donald Trump's adversaries in the legal realm, you had Bob Mueller, who doesn't speak. And then you had Michael Avenatti, who does speak a lot. Michael Cohen did not have a representative who got involved in the kind of gamesmanship. He now does. Whatever you think of Lanny Davis, whatever you think of his motivations, whatever you think of why he's doing this, he's back. And he, like Michael Avenatti, is a skilled practitioner of the dark arts and the garish arts of media lawyering. So the president now, we now are in that place, and we had this back in the Clinton administration, we've had this at other times, where we now have Rudy Giuliani, Michael Avenatti, Lanny Davis, all engaged in, all of it, I don't have a problem with any of it, but all of them have obscure motivations, all of them are not telling precisely the truth, all of them are advocating and jousting on their client's behalf, and it takes us into the new, in a kind of a carnival, legal carnival kind of element of this story. That is going to raise, we're going to see a lot of stories like this that are going to come out in dribs and drabs, and the interpretive prisms that each side put on are going to be in stark conflict, and you're not going to know exactly what to believe until we get into a court, if we ever do.
Right. Well, and Rudy Giuliani has obviously already been doing that on the president's behalf.
He has.
So to a certain extent, Michael Cohen would have been at a disadvantage.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Betsy Woodruff, as we're trying to kind of sort through